The American Civil War, a dark chapter in our nation's history, stemmed from deep-rooted tensions. The issue of slavery, a moral stain on the country, stood at the forefront. Southern states relied heavily on enslaved labor for their agricultural economy. They feared Northern attempts to abolish slavery would destroy their way of life. Adding fuel to the fire, economic and cultural differences widened the chasm between North and South. The industrial North, with its bustling factories and growing cities, clashed with the agrarian South, deeply tied to its traditions and the land. The debate over states' rights versus federal authority further exacerbated tensions. As the nation expanded westward, the question of whether slavery should be allowed in new territories ignited fierce debates. Compromises like the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850 only temporarily quelled the storm. The issue of slavery, deeply intertwined with the fabric of American society, refused to be silenced. The nation stood on a precipice divided by moral, economic, and political differences. The seeds of conflict had been sown, and a storm was brewing that would soon engulf the nation in a bloody and brutal war. The tension that had been building for decades finally snapped in April 1861. Confederate forces, fueled by secessionist fervor, attacked Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina. The fort, a symbol of federal authority in the seceded South, became the battleground where the war's first shots were fired. The attack on Fort Sumter shocked the nation and ignited the flames of war. President Abraham Lincoln, calling for 75,000 volunteers to quell the rebellion, rallied the North to defend the Union. The South, emboldened by its defiance, prepared to fight for its independence and the preservation of its way of life. The die was cast. Brother would fight brother, and the nation would be torn apart in a bloody conflict. The Civil War, long dreaded and desperately avoided, had begun. The early years of the war saw a series of bloody battles, each side vying for control and momentum. The First Battle of Bull Run, fought near Manassas, Virginia, in July 1861, shattered any illusions of a quick Union victory. Confederate forces led by the skilled General Thomas Stonewall Jackson routed the Union Army, sending shockwaves through the North. The Battle of Shiloh, fought in southwestern Tennessee in April 1862, proved to be one of the bloodiest engagements in the war's early phases. Confederate forces launched a surprise attack on Union troops, but Grant's army, reinforced overnight, ultimately prevailed. Shiloh, a costly victory for the Union, underscored the brutal reality of the conflict. The war raged on, with neither side able to deliver a decisive blow. The Peninsula Campaign, a Union effort to capture the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, bogged down in a series of bloody battles. General Robert E. Lee, assuming command of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, emerged as a brilliant strategist, frustrating Union advances and solidifying his reputation as a military genius. The year 1863 proved to be a turning point in the war, marked by two pivotal battles that shifted the balance of power in favor of the Union. The Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1863, became a turning point in the Eastern Theater. Lee's attempt to invade the North ended in a costly defeat, crippling the Confederate Army and dashing Southern hopes for a decisive victory on Northern soil. Meanwhile, in the West, Union forces under General Ulysses S. Grant achieved a strategic victory at the Siege of Vicksburg. The capture of Vicksburg gave the Union complete control of the Mississippi River, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two. The Confederacy, facing mounting losses and dwindling resources, found itself increasingly on the defensive. These victories, hard fought and dearly won, breathed new life into the Union cause. The tide of the war was turning, and with it, the hope for a unified nation began to flicker anew. Section 5. Leadership in the Crucible: Lincoln, Davis, Grant, and Lee. The Civil War witnessed the rise of extraordinary leaders, men who shaped the course of the conflict and left an indelible mark on American history. President Abraham Lincoln, the Union's steadfast leader, guided the nation through its darkest hour. His eloquence, compassion, and unwavering commitment to preserving the Union inspired the North and ultimately helped redefine the meaning of freedom and equality in America. Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederate States of America, faced the daunting task of leading a nation born out of rebellion. While a capable administrator, he struggled to unite a confederacy divided by internal dissent and dwindling resources. On the battlefield, two military giants emerged: Ulysses S. Grant for the Union and Robert E. Lee for the Confederacy. Grant, a tenacious and determined commander, brought a relentless approach to the war, wearing down the Confederate forces with his unwavering pursuit of victory. Lee, a brilliant tactician and charismatic leader, inspired fierce loyalty in his troops and earned the respect of his adversaries. Section 6. Beyond the Battlefield, the Home Front and the Emancipation Proclamation. The Civil War was more than just a clash of armies. It was a conflict that touched every aspect of American life. On the home front, families coped with the absence of loved ones fighting on distant battlefields. Women took on new roles, managing farms and businesses, and volunteering in hospitals to support the war effort. In 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a watershed moment in American history. The proclamation declared that all slaves held in Confederate territory were to be freed. While it did not immediately end slavery in the United States, it transformed the war into a fight for freedom and equality, galvanizing support for the Union cause and inspiring hope among enslaved African Americans. Section 7. The South defeated, a nation forged anew. By 1864, the Confederacy, battered and exhausted, faced an increasingly grim reality. Grant's relentless campaign in Virginia and General William T. Sherman's devastating march through Georgia had taken a heavy toll. The South's resources were dwindling, its armies depleted, and its hope for victory fading. On April 9, 1865, at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, General Robert E. Lee surrendered his Army of Northern Virginia to Ulysses S. Grant. The surrender, marked by mutual respect and a spirit of reconciliation, effectively ended the Civil War. The nation, torn apart by 4 years of bloody conflict, began the long and arduous process of healing and reunification. The Civil War, a tragic chapter in American history, had come to an end. Section 8. The Enduring Legacy, Civil War's Impact on America. The Civil War left an indelible mark on the United States, reshaping the nation's political, social, and economic landscape. The war resolved the issue of slavery, with the ratification of the 13th Amendment abolishing the institution forever. The concepts of freedom and equality, enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, took on new meaning and urgency. The war also had a profound impact on the balance of power between the federal government and the states. The Union victory affirmed the supremacy of the federal government and its authority over matters of national importance. The Civil War, though a period of immense suffering and loss, ultimately served as a crucible from which a stronger and more unified nation emerged. It redefined the meaning of freedom, reaffirmed the principles of democracy, and laid the groundwork for a more just and equitable society. Section 9. Echoes of the Past, Remembering and Learning from the Civil War. More than 150 years after its conclusion, the Civil War continues to resonate in American memory. Battlefields, preserved as national parks, serve as solemn reminders of the sacrifices made by those who fought and died in the conflict. Monuments and memorials honor the courage and resilience of a generation tested by war. The Civil War, with its complex causes and enduring legacies, offers valuable lessons for the present and the future. It reminds us of the fragility of democracy, the importance of dialogue and compromise, and the enduring power of hope and resilience in the face of adversity. By studying and remembering this pivotal chapter in our nation's history, we honor the past and learn valuable lessons for building a more just and equitable future.